Hey, and welcome. Let me just do this. Go. Okay, there are sound. 1 second. Damn it. Okay, I think we are good to go. Yeah, it's working and there are sound. Beautiful. So, welcome to the stream. Um, the idea here is to start live streaming on the Eternal World Picture. It's an idea I've had for a long time. Something I did a little bit last year. I was thinking about what I could actually use live streaming for. There's this long format, that's the main thing on the channel, and that's what I keep focusing on. But the idea for this live stream basically came because one of the videos was, had a lot of comments, and I felt that quite a lot of them actually should have a better reply than I could give it in written and or as a comment or reply basically. And on the other hand, it wasn't like I was going to do a whole video about some of the replies because they're a little bit outside of the scope of the channel. So what I basically decided to do is that I will, when I see comments that are relevant for one reason or another, I will just pick them up, and as you will see today, I'll put them into a presentation, and then I'll use the live stream to actually talk about it, because a live stream is a bit more, well, it's a bit more informal in a way. The long format videos has to be a little bit more tight. So I'm thinking about just talking, and I haven't really market this event that much, so I don't know how many will actually be here. Probably not a lot, but it doesn't matter. This is just, how does it feel? How is it? How is it working? Can I talk about it? All those kind of things. So what I've done is, as I said, I've put it into a presentation. I need. This is streamed on both in vertical and in vertical. So you will have it as a short, and you will have it as a as a normal live stream video. So the video that went, I will not say viral, but got a lot of hits and a lot of comments, is it's called Religion in Decline. So that's the title here, and I will post it in the chat. It's this one. And what I'm gonna say today is pretty much, the motivation for having this stream. I thought that was something I should put out there. So I've done that. And then I'll talk a little bit about what the video was about. I don't expect everyone to have seen it. Now you can go and watch it. Do it after the stream, or go and watch it and then watch the stream later. We're happy to have some questions, comments in the chat if that's possible. That would be great. But let's see what happens. So yeah, I will give an overview of. You can even see my mouse. Over what the video is about, just briefly, very briefly. It's a 18 minute long video, and I'll do it shorter. And then I have picked up some of the comments, and some of them are quite interesting actually. So we'll see about that. Yeah, and one of them is actually about a study in how the religion is evolving in, or actually the opposite. It's more like declining actually in the US. So let's get into it. Yeah, well, first of all, I will say thanks for viewing and subbing to the channel. It actually makes a difference for the motivation of doing these things. So every time you watch and like the videos and comment and all those kind of things, it actually makes it just gives a little bit of a push the days where you have to work for it, so to speak. And especially the last one here, where suddenly hundreds of people, thousands even, started to watch it, was kind of interesting and not something I really saw coming. So just want to say thanks for all that. And I should also say, if you want to follow the channel, just subscribe to it. It actually makes a little bit of difference as a YouTuber to do that. And if you have any comments, of course, put them in the chat, and I can actually see them. When I look into the camera, I can actually see what you're writing, if you're writing something. Anyway, yeah, so I pretty much already said this, but I'm just gonna say it. There are some really good comments. Actually, some of them challenged what I have said a bit. Things I wasn't thinking about mostly. So I will try to elaborate on some of that. I think they're relevant for the topic, the aspects I didn't cover. And then there are some reasonable, you can say, critique of the video. It's not that I think what's in the video is wrong. It's just maybe I should have stated a few more things about the assumptions behind what I was saying. So I think it still makes sense, but there are some things that can be elaborated on. And that's what we're gonna do in this video. Yeah. And sometimes, as I already said, the comments that are given needs a reply, which might be a little bit longer than what you can do in 5 sentences or in 5 lines or 50, 100 words, something like that. But on the other hand, it doesn't really make sense to make a video because it doesn't really fit into the theme of the channel. And the theme of the channel is to answer, you can say, day-to-day, daily questions, thoughts, philosophical, spiritual thoughts, based on the world picture made by or described by the Danish thinker, spiritual thinker called Martinus. So this is sort of in between a comment and a full video. And I hope at some point, now this one, I take it as a test, just see how it goes, how I feel about it, and maybe I will try to push it a bit more than I have this time. I did not really push it that hard, not even to people I know, but yeah, we'll take it. So let's see what the next is. This is the thumbnail, and I can remove myself. I should be able to do that. That was not that one. Nope. It's only on the horizontal stream where it's the whole thing. So this is the thumbnail, why religion lose relevance. So the video is basically about how, let me put myself again. So the video is basically about here. Now my hair is not cut off. Yeah, so the video is basically about, I think that's the next one. Here's a lot of text. That's what I do sometimes. Oh, what did I do? Nothing. Okay, cool. Main points in the video. Go and watch it. It will be more elaborate in the video. The first thing is that the whole assumption is basically that religion is in a decline in the modern part of the world. And there were some comments on what that was. But let's just say that I was thinking in terms of the Western world, and that might even be a bit too simplistic as well. But we see, I'm from Scandinavia, I'm from Denmark, and we definitely, I would say, have seen that over the last 100 years, something like that. So that was what I was thinking when I did the video, that it made sense. I think at thought it was kind of connecting to people. And I think it's a question that comes up around the world, basically. So that was sort of the outset of the video. Why is that happening? And I try to answer that based on the work of Martinus. So what he is essentially saying is that the faith-based religions is based on what he calls instinct. And we know the word, but his definition of it is basically that it's a sort of an automatic function in your consciousness. So it comes without really thinking about things. So what it does to religion and faith is that you can essentially just believe in what you have been told. Someone says something, or you can read a book and you believe in it without really that much question. So that's the idea here, that it really goes without thinking too much in a way. And I'm trying to say this with all the respect for religious people and stuff. I'm just saying that's the thinking here. And there are also examples of what do this instinct do to people. Well, basically, you can see the birds, they can find their way without thinking too much, things like that. Anyway, so instinct is something where you don't have to reflect and think too critical. You've been told there's a God and you live your life. One way of thinking, right, is that you go to heaven if you do good and you go to hell if you do bad, right? And you don't question that too much. And then, so that's instinct. Don't know how well I did it here, but I explained it here. But it's essentially this automatic thing. You don't do too much about it, basically. It's just there. So when you believe in God, you just do it. You don't really do a lot of thinking, and then you come to the conclusion, okay, there must be a God, and I know it's there, or I'm thinking it's there. You just know it's there. And then we have intelligence, which requires that you get all the things in between. So there you need facts, there you need analysis, categorization, you need understanding, you need knowledge, you need to know what is going on. So the idea in the video is basically that today we have, and this is where the time frame of things come in, over the last 150 years, we have started to go much more in school, and we're getting schooled in thinking, basically. So when we have to live our life, there are so many things we have to, that we need to think about, basically, in order to live. I mean, we have to, we cannot just go out in the field and find food and so forth. We need money, we have to pay taxes, and life is complicated, right? And we are getting, especially these days, we are getting bombarded with information that we need to somehow take care of. So anyway, we are getting schooled in thinking and explaining and base our things on facts. At least that's the idea here. So when we get, so if that's what we get in school and that's what we experience in life, that we need to do that, and we get into the church and then we are just being told what the world is, and there are all these holes in the explanation, if it's even there, and then people start to doubt. That's sort of the idea here in the video. So essentially, we're getting school in critical thinking that makes religion decline. That's the idea. So so the first thing that comes into play after that is essentially that the first facts you can get when you leave religion is basically the physical ones. We can see them with our eyes, we can feel them, and all those kind of things, physical senses. So that becomes the facts we have. And at some point, it gets to an extent where people only believe in the physical facts, and they become materialistic and ultimately atheists. So that happens for a while, and then the assertion here is that The problem with that is it's good for a lot of things, right? We're getting computers and cars and spaceships and you know what, a lot of things from materialistic science. Excuse me. But what we don't get is what is the meaning with all this? And as long as life goes well, it's not really a problem. But the day where things go wrong, you might want an answer. So, and the assertion here is that you cannot provide that with materialism. I mean, what kind of meaning comes out of we are some atoms that are a bag of atoms that just seems like a living being somehow? What's the whole idea behind all that? So that's the assertion with that. And then Martinus comes in and say, hey, there's more than just the materialistic world. There's also a spiritual world. That's the mental part of us. That's the mental part of the whole thing. That's where planning, intention, meaning to things comes in. So he says, yes, you can experience the materialistic world, but behind every materialistic thing, there is an intention. And he says, think about a book. If you take a book, if you're a materialistic point of view on a book, then you can measure it. You can see there are something we call signs, characters that makes up words and stuff. But if we can only measure the size of them and how they are printed on the paper and so forth, what about the whole meaning that's in the books? And he says essentially the same about the world, that the whole world is like a book. You can measure all the characters and the words, but the meaning behind the words, that's the real important thing, and that's where the spiritual part comes in. So you know what, let me move. Okay, let me move it up here. I just saw that the logo is in the way. Anyway, improvements. So that's the spiritual science. I don't know how well I explained it here, but essentially it adds the meaning to things. That's the idea with that one. So I hope that did the video some kind of justice. So let's see what people have written. And the first thing is, so now we're going into the comments. And the first one is, I call it, what is religion, right? What is religion in the first place? So what is actually in decline? Which is a great question. What is the scope of this thing I'm calling out? So what is it we are talking about? And this is Morten Bendiksen, sounds like Dane, anyway. So 1, if you mean following certain beliefs without examination, the world is certainly more religious right now than it has been in many centuries. Okay, so if you believe something without examination, he claims that religion right now is not in decline, but there's more of it. There's a lot of unpacking just in that, because of what does it mean? What are we talking about? I didn't say the whole world. That's one thing. I'm not gonna try to defend myself here in any way. People are inclined to whatever opinion they have. First of all, you can say just the number in the world right now. What are we? 8 billion, something like that. So there are way more religious people right now than there used to be, just because there are more people, basically. And percentage-wise, it's still so high, the number, that there are obviously way more religious people in some sense. So this is not a number game, really. And I think, are there more than there has been? I don't know. Anyway, let's go to the next one. If you mean its etymological meaning, which is practices that keep people bound together in unseen and somewhat mysterious way through celebration and participation in thanksgiving rituals and common search for guidance, then yes, it is certainly the lowest it has been at least in the West and maybe most places. Yeah, so that's definitely decline. I mean, if we talk about Denmark, I think we'll come back to an article later about how it's going in the US the last 30 years. So yes, it's in decline, and in Denmark, Scandinavia has probably been like that for 100, maybe 150 years. Well, there are a few things that are still going on. Christmas, I think that's pretty well. There are Easter and a few things, and obviously there are people who goes to church, but it's not part of the daily life in many ways. It's not part of politics. It's not. I mean, you cannot make a religious argument in politics in Denmark. Then you're just. I would say your career is pretty much it's close to over. Um, we had one party in Denmark. We have like 10 in our parliament, and one of them were a religious party, and they were even very modest. And they got kicked out at some point. Anyway, and then he says these two things are completely at odds. I don't know. So the idea here is basically people stop going into the churches and more people are believing without thinking. I don't know about. Anyway, so I think I'll just go back to the point that yeah, that definitely we see things right now in the world where it seems like it's become more and more religious based. It's like it's popped up in a different way that it maybe used to, and it's taking more place in some countries for sure. But the point here is that there's a tendency, at least where I come from, that religion has declined. And I'll come back to this idea about what time frame are we actually talking about here. Are we talking about the last couple of years, the last 10 years, or are we talking about like maybe 2,000 years? That's where Christianity started, right? And I will just take his last word, and I think that's the main part here. If you look at today and see some sort of increase in rationality in public life, I think you're sadly mistaken. I think there are other reasons than rational thinking that are making the world into the place it is right now. I think people are frustrated in some ways. They are looking for a meaning that's not there in their view on life. Anyway, thanks for the comment. Maybe I should have just done it a little bit more justice than I did here. Series number 2 involves realizing that there will always be a bunch of people doing here. Let's go to the next one. I like this comment, by the way. I think I got it better when I read it. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Then I mentioned Buddhism in the video, and someone said Buddhism is not a religion, it's a philosophy. I was like, huh. So I googled it, obviously, and it can actually be both. I don't know who is the big judge of is it religion or not, but there are definitely other people who use it as a religion, and it's not really the main point. Yes, there are probably some more explanation in Buddhism than in some of the other religions. I don't know much about Buddhism, honestly. So yeah, fair enough. If someone thinks it's not a religion, no problem. I mentioned it as one of them because Martinus does it as well as one of the big three religions, and there's Christianity, Buddhism, and the one Muslims, Islam. Yeah. So yeah, so we're talking the rather old religions here. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. Just what are you even talking about? What kind of religion? What are you mentioning? Anyway, so now that was a little bit what is religion, what decline are you actually talking about, and now we go into, is religion actually in decline? So the first thing I would like to address is this: what time span are we actually talking about? Because is it the last couple of years? We saw the other comment as well, that might be within the last couple of decades. Are we talking about a much longer time span? And I was thinking more in terms of the religions were created 2,000 years ago, roughly. It was a completely different time back then. There were no schooling, there were no anything, right? And you can say, well, today a lot of people are still following the religion kind of blindly in some ways, and all this rational thinking might not be there. I think that's what the first comment is referring to. But there are definitely way more people today that can think critically and want an answer they can understand in order to trust it or believing it or have it as a belief, take it into their own life. So I was thinking longer term, at least. I'll come with some numbers that actually shows that is happening in the US right now. I think it has been happening in Denmark for a longer time, probably like 80, maybe 100 years. Martinus, who I'm basing this channel on, he was born in 1890, and he started writing in 1920, so it's about 100 years ago now. So a lot of the things he was writing took its outset in how things were 100 years ago. So he was writing these things 100 years ago about religion being in some kind of decline, or the churches being more and more empty. So this is not something what has happened the last 2, 4, 5 years. This is what has happened for centuries, maybe even 1 or 2,000 years. And I think religion has been, well, I'm not a religion scientist or anything, but so I might be completely off here, but it has had a pretty big influence. I know my history that well, with the Pope in Europe and those kind of things. So it had a really huge influence on people's life. And well, I can talk about Scandinavia. I think it's in decline there. Is it decline in the whole Western world? Or let's say the last 500 years? Yeah, I think so. But that's just my opinion. That's an assertion. You don't have to take it for more than that. So, so I just want to say that this is a much longer time period we're talking about. So then we have the article. So let me just do this, and I will find it in a second. So thanks for the comment from Sean Anderson. Here we go. And there. I can be in the corner. So he's referring to this PEW Research Center. I don't know what it is, actually. So let me start by disclaiming that. But it's a study. I don't know how they have done it. Maybe they have made a survey, something. I don't know. I got it today. But what they essentially show, however they have figured this out, how the religious composition has changed in the US. So Christianity has been a huge thing, and this is from the 70s, so this is 50 years. And you can see when they asked, it's a survey, general social survey. I don't know what that is, but it seems, I don't know, somewhat solid at least. Interesting numbers, no matter what. So basically, what we can see here is that from the 70s and going forward until the end of the 90s, then 90% of the Americans, when asked, say, I'm a Christian person. And then it starts to wear off quite a lot. And it's not like people are going to other religions, they are simply unaffiliated. I would consider myself in that category as well. And then they talk about being born into a Christian family. Are you then staying like a Christian, or are you actually leaving your childhood religion behind? And obviously that is happening to a larger extent. So that's kind of interesting that is actually happening. I've lived in the US. I would say, and I lived there in 98 and 2004, and you could definitely feel this religious aspect of the society compared to a place like Denmark. There are just things you should just be careful what you said, basically, compared to here. Of course, there are things you cannot say in Denmark as well, but there are some things. So they talk about that and the changes in that, and they also, then they go into who is actually leaving or are not stating that they are Christians anymore, and it's the young people. It's not that surprising, actually, in some ways. So here we see age above 40 plus, 80% Christian. And if we go 30 to 39, just not that young. I'm older. Anyway, it's 66%, right? And if we go even among US adults raised Christians. So this is who were actually born into a Christian family. And you can see that's 1/3 of them. A little bit goes to other religions, but 1/3 is actually losing their religion in some ways. And then the unaffiliated, so you are actually, I assume that means you don't have a religion, or at least you don't affiliate with a religion. I would say that, let's just assume that's not a religion right now. And I would be surprised if this is actually people becoming Christians when they grow up. Who knows? That's actually that's a large, well, it's a number. Raised Christian, blah, 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 a lot of things. So here we go into why. So they have an age difference. Kind of makes sense in a way, I think, and that's just my idea, that there has been this idea that you had to be a Christian to be in the country. That was sort of the norm. You go back 150 years, you had to be married. And I think there were practical reasons for that as well. So it was not just a free lunch to not being married. Today it doesn't matter. You can do pretty much as you want. Of course, everything has consequences, but it's not such a big deal today as I'm pretty sure it was 150 years ago. And I think there are something that kind of, it's the norm, you're supposed to be Christian. And I think that has kind of held back this development in a country like the US, because it's like 90%, that's a lot. That's pretty much everyone. I know there's 10% that's not there, but you can see then you have 4 or 5% who are probably from some other country. Or, I mean, I'm surprised that the number is that high, because there are so many people who have migrated to the US. So, so if you're not a Christian, then at least you have some other religion, right? And then you have a small portion of everyone who doesn't have a religion. So you kind of had to have a religion, right? And now it's pretty much out in the open. No, you don't need that. So I think they kind of just have blown up and said, okay, maybe that number has been higher, but it's just, yeah, I'm a Christian. Let's move on. Anyway, enough controversial stuff from here. Let's get back to why. Yeah, so there's the younger leaving Christianity more than the older ones. Fair enough. That how things are developing. I think it's about just being free, basically, and being able to do it. Anyway, enough about that. A little bit about gender. Female a little bit more than males. 54 for males are Christians, and 57 are for women. I think that's don't know what the statistics are, but I think that's pretty close, actually. And then we have here, and I find this actually backing up the video a bit, education. If you have a college degree, there are fewer who remain Christian. So that actually goes with the same idea that the more educated you are, the higher the chance are that you leave your religion. So you do that. Yeah, so that's kind of goes into that. Yeah. What else was here? Yeah, then there's some politics and there's some geography, and I don't want to go into that. So let's get back. So that was some numbers that actually shows that it is actually happening. It didn't happen to the same extent. It hasn't happened as long ago as I thought it would, but it's also happening in the US right now. People leaving the church, the religion, basically. Okay. So that was that. So that's really interesting. I don't know why it's a challenge, actually. I think it's maybe unless I've misunderstood something, then I think it's pretty much show my point, or the point in the video. So anyway, can we look from 1 hour ago? Thank you for the comment. Anyway, let's move on. So then we have this question. Are we more critical thinkers today, or are we less critical? And I'm pretty sure people think sometimes about the political situation. So let me read the comment. I don't think people are increasing in intelligence in the sense of critical thinking. They are just switching paradigms or the narrative they accept uncritically because that is what they hear from current or popular authority figures. Also, your eternal world picture beliefs is indistinguishable from Orthodox Jewish description of God and why suffering happens. I don't know about the Jewish description or the Orthodox Jewish anything to have any opinion about that. So I'll leave that part out. But the idea here is that we are not getting smarter. We are just changing the way we are thinking. Again, it comes a little bit back to the time span of this. Let's go back 100, 200, 500, 5,000 years, maybe 2,000 years. What would the world look like back then? It might be difficult to imagine. But let's take the idea, let's take Martinus as an example, right? He was born in 1890, so he went to school around 1900, 120 years ago, and he was living in a part of Denmark where it was a farmland, basically. And he went to school a couple of times a week, and maybe a little more. He literally says he went in the summer, he was working, so he went to school a couple of times and maybe a little bit more in the winter. That was it, right? And today you are in school a lot. So do you get smarter by that? Do you get smarter if you train your thinking? That's my experience. That if you train things, if you practice things, if you get schooled in it, you become a better critical thinker. That's an assertion here. I need to find something to back that up a little bit better. But I think today, I mean, I'm teaching on a daily basis, and if you cannot explain what you're talking about as a teacher, you're getting, I haven't tried it, but some of my colleagues have been basically crucified. Not literally, but the students are not happy, right? So you're not the authority anymore. You just need to be able to pull off the arguments, the explanation, the knowledge you need. Obviously, there's a little bit of it, but not like it was back in the days. So yes, do I think people are increasing in intelligence? Yes, I do. Do I think it's like an continuous slowly going up all the time? Sometimes you doubt that that's the thing, but over a long period of times, yes, I do think people are getting smarter today. We know way more. There's so much more we have to think about, take in and process, and it just takes a completely different way of thinking. I mean, back in the days, you were just the clothes we are wearing. You're pretty much putting on the same clothes as a man as your father was, and that was it, and that was what you did for life, and you wasn't thinking about it and your work and everything. Of course, there has been some people who has been outstanding literally and been able to do things that we consider exceptional, but I would say the average today is just way higher. Are there people who don't think critically? Are there people who kind of paralyze their intelligence in some ways? Yeah, I think so. But that's how it is. It doesn't mean that they are not developing their intelligence. So yes, I don't think it's a switch in paradigm. It's not just I'll try to come up with more examples. But I definitely think the world is way more complex today than it was 100 or 200 years ago. I think that's it's a little bit. I don't think that's right. And I don't think people just believe in authorities. I don't think that. I have a big interest in what Martinus says, and I need to understand what he's saying. I cannot just pick up what he's saying and say that's how it is. I'm trained as a scientist. I have a PhD. I know to a large extent I know what I know and I know what I don't know. At least I'm aware that are things that I know and I don't know. There are hypotheses, and then there are things that I'm pretty sure that's how it is. That's what I think is not believing in authorities. Because, yeah, he has said some things. A lot of other people say a lot of things. Okay. because they have said it. I'm interested in what they have said. That's really interesting. Anyway, so just switching a paradigm. So that also means we don't develop. We're just switching opinions or how we see the world. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Next one. It's funny how religious dogma can change as society changes. They know if they don't, people will stop believing. When one can reinterpret a holy text, the God doesn't seem to all-knowing and powerful. Yeah, so this is, I brought this one in because it says something about how religion has developed. And that's a really interesting topic, how it was when it started out. If we talk about Christianity 2,000 years ago, that was one thing. And then it has evolved, right? It's not written by Jesus, right? It's written by someone else. So just that thing has kind of, what is this? So that's one thing. And then, yeah, it has been massaged over the years. The church tried to develop. It has been split up in different segments over the years. I live in an area where we are mostly Protestants. The Catholic Church has been big, and there are a lot of, yeah, I don't know about that much about it. I just know it has been fragmented in many ways, where people are emphasizing different things. So that's one thing. So yeah, but I think the key question here is, so can the religion actually change in a way so that dogmas are relevant for us? That's the thing, right? If they can do that, I'm wrong. And if they cannot do that, then I'm not wrong. So is it possible, based on the Bible, the ceremonies, the priests, and the authorities, to change in a way so they become relevant? Just saw some of the numbers. It doesn't look like it, right? And if you take the churches in Denmark, I don't have the numbers, but they are being closed down, some of them at least. So it in a way it seems like, from that point of view, that right now I think they're in some struggles in some areas. Obviously there are areas where it's still all out religious, and the whole society is built on religious beliefs, basically, on how things should be. And we also see it in politics in some parts, even in the Western world today. But just changing the dogma and have people believing it, that's the whole point, right? That becomes more and more difficult, and it's really starting to show. And as I said, in a country like Denmark, you're not gonna get away with a religious argument for pretty much anything. It's not viable. So, and I'm pretty much saying here that Denmark is sort of the front runner, right? But we've been there. We've been religious, and we were also a big country 1,000 years ago, but not anymore, right? So we have been through a lot as a country over the years, and it shows. So, can they just change? Can the religion just change? So, I mean, if the assumption about that we need arguments is right, and where do we find those arguments? There are none. It's just images, feelings, something you can believe in. So that's the idea here. If you start losing the ability to believe, then there's no way back for religion. If you can still believe, but it's just how it's packaged, then religion has no problem. It's really that simple. But nice comment, Deacon75. Yeah, I think we have a few more. Let me take see what has happened. Not a lot. Anyway, so here we have one. People have been serving a god of unlimited greed and authoritarian rule that has always kept small group in complete control of the working class. They justify evil, hate, bureaucracy, wars for profit, genocide in the name of God. Can only hope people can find a belief system that is the opposite of an organized religion. Well, I brought this one to this stream because I think there's a point that religion has had its darker sides. Let me put it that way. Is that why people are leaving? Well, if that was the case, a lot of people would have left, right, and probably a long time ago. I mean, then not everything is great today, but back in the day, they were literally killing people. Today they're doing other things that are in some ways not that bad. And back in the days, Inquisition and all those kind of things, right? People were just getting killed off in the name of God, basically. That doesn't happen today. So something has changed, and I think we have gotten other things that we can actually take into our life. We can fill up our lives, and I would say the people should have left a long time ago, right? But they didn't. So people are different today than they were like 400 or 500 years ago. Whatever, something like that. And also how people were punished. And it was just more brutal back then, basically. The wars are pretty brutal and crazy because we have all the technology we have. But back in the days, it was just all out wars and heroes if you killed in wars and stuff, and that's not the case anymore. So I think in a way that if there anything, we are getting more humane in a way. We are getting more ethical. So these kind of things, maybe we didn't like it back in the days. I don't know. I can't remember anything from there. But today we just don't want to be affiliated with people who does those kind of things, right? So that's also a way that people might be leaving. There's the intelligence part, but there might also be an ethical part that I don't want to be part of something that does things like I think this comment is pointing towards. And I don't think religion is just all out bad. There are definitely also some good things. Yes, because religion is unfounded, no compelling evidence. It is about authority, control, and eventually money. The more advanced, smarter, informed people, the more likely religion. Not necessary. Thanks for that comment. Yeah. Religion is unfounded, no compelling evidence. Well, Martinus would say that the religions we have were not meant to have any evidence, so that's why it's not there. And yes, it's all about authority in a way. I'm not sure it's about control, and I'm not sure it's about money. Sometimes it has been about control, and sometimes it has been about money. But that's definitely also a humane aspect in the religions. So it's not a black and white thing. Of course, some people has crossed a thing or two, and they probably shouldn't have done. But that's how it is. I would say today we are also in a different place. We are different today than we was hundreds of years ago. and maybe some of it had to be a little bit rough in order to work, in order to actually connect with the people. I'm not saying it's okay to do all the things that the church has done. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the circumstances might sometimes have been hard for us to grasp today. And what about the religions today? There are places on earth where religion is the number one thing in a country, and it's not great, right? It's a little bit different where the religion and the state has been split apart. So we have some somewhat okay justice system, and yeah, it's more pragmatic in a way. Politics, basically. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, and I think it's also a good point that the more advanced, smarter, informed people are, the less you need the religion in some ways. At least to some extent. The problem is when things get rough. What do we do in that case? How do we cope with that? If you think you're a bag of atoms, life makes no sense. What do you do? And in that case, I think you need something. Anyway. Then I have this one. Yes, read Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near. Religion has an expiration date of 150 to 200 years, tops. I don't know. Then technology will do everything that religion has promised for centuries. I cannot see that, but I think it was. I like the comment. Just well, what other options are out there, right? Technology, who knows? I don't even have the imagination to figure out how technology would take over religion. Firstly, you have to figure out what religion is doing, and then you have to figure out whether technology can do that or not. If religion is something you have a faith in, why would technology take over? I mean, it just means that religion is fake in some ways. I don't think it is, basically. I think there's something to religion. It's just the way it's formed, it's described. It's not for modern people, basically. And modern, that's not to look down on anyone or anything. It's just you cannot you cannot check it, and some of it doesn't make any sense. If you have a God that knows everything, has created us, and then afterwards, after knowing everything, and has created us, and then he sends us to hell, what the heck is going on here, right? That makes no sense. So I think we need to have some explanations where we can follow the logic. It makes sense. There's a meaning to it. There's not the conflicts logically, and we can see it in our own lives. I think that's why I'm bringing up Martinus, because I think he has some of this. He has calls them chain of thoughts, so you can actually follow how it comes from A to B and to C and so forth, and it tries to relate it to the experiences that we have. So quite a lot of his work is actually arguing and explaining in details what are these things. So anyway, good. Religion also loses relevance when its members and especially its leaders lose coercive power over a given population. Coercive power is this, that you can just give an order, basically, and people have to follow that. It's also in leadership. Coercion is basically, you have to do that, no discussion. So furthermore, people won't stick around a group they don't want to associate with if there are no consequences for not doing so. That's a good point. And I think that's what shows in the numbers actually. That you back in the days you got in some serious trouble if you weren't a religious person, right? Then and you see it in today as well in some religions and in some areas where some religions are practiced, that you cannot leave the group basically, and if you do, then they come after you basically. So that's one thing. But there's also been, I think, a pressure from society that you have to do certain things, and we still see it, right? Just not in the religious area. I mean, there are norms basically. That's what I'm talking about. It's not flat out coercion, coercive powers, but they have taken over at least for a while. So yeah, as soon as you can get out, if you want to get out, you get out. I think that's that could be an explanation. Anyway, took a little bit more than an hour. I have to practice this a little bit more, but I think generally, I think maybe the idea is okay. I think, and who cares about what I think, but it's more about what you guys think. I do think that yeah, I'll try to do that at some point again and see what happens. Yeah, and then maybe yeah, I'll evaluate a little bit. If you have any comments about this, if you have watched it, if you watch it at some point, then please leave a comment below and let me know what you think about the setup, the idea. I'm sure it can be improved. I'm happy to improve it. I like to improve things. That's why I'm trying this today, and we'll see what happens. I will say thank you and see you next time. Bye.